My guest right now, former GM of the Atlanta Falcons, two-time NFL Executive of the Year, President of Football Operations at Sumer Sports, and co-host of the Sumer Sports Show, Thomas Dimitroff. Great to see you as always.
Hey, always great. Thanks for having me.
It's a perfect day to have you. I'm glad this worked out. I want you because we got action in Atlanta to kick off Week 5. Matt Ryan getting inducted into the Falcons Hall of Fame. He was your first pick as the Falcons GM back in 2008. You know him so well. An emotional night, I'm sure.
Emotional night. I mean, we were at a function the other day, and the way that he was carrying himself, I mean, that guy is just oozing with confidence, not only as a player, as you know, even in the studio now. But anyway, he's so deserving of everything. I can't wait to see him come out on the field and receive that accolade. Obviously, it's a big thing. And as you saw, Arthur Blank was inducted last week, so it's a good back-to-back week.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. And I got to hang out with Matt Ryan a couple of weeks ago, and I was not surprised, but he was swearing. He was talking about his wife sending him texts with expletives and stuff. And it's, we see this one Boy Scoutish Matt Ryan. I'd like you to tell me, give me like a Matt Ryan story we haven't told before.
No, look, I mean, Matt is highly competitive. He doesn't call himself a Philly guy, but I think he is a Philly guy. He's right in that area, of course. But he's always been incredibly competitive, and he is. Nice smile, always nice, very good in the community. Great guy, represents very well. But he is an F-bomb guy, and I don't say that, Matt, please forgive me for saying that. That's just part of his exclamation points, right? It's not, he's not calling people names. He's just a fiery dude. And, again, you see it on the field early on when he first got to Atlanta. He was navigating properly, but when the competitiveness came out, it didn't matter if he was talking to Roddy White or Michael Jenkins or Tony Gonzalez. I mean, he would get after them, which I always thought was a great trait for him as he grew to be the quarterback that he was. And to me, he is a Hall of Fame talent to be. I don't throw that around that often because I don't want to insult the people in the Hall of Fame thinking that it's an easy move, but he is definitely worthy of Hall of Fame status for sure.
Hall of Fame's next. Ring of Honor tonight. They're in Atlanta with these Buccaneers. There were huge expectations, like on paper, everything going on for this offense. And outside of the 2-minute drill, they've been inconsistent moving the ball. What is that, and how do we get this new look offense to click?
We'll first start off with Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, the way that Kirk Cousins moves the ball around, how he has in the past, he is what they were looking for, and it's why they brought him in. And I know that it was a polarizing decision as far as two quarterbacks being brought in this year. Obviously, he's still healing. They need to get the ball down the field more, and that's complicated sometimes when you're coming off of an injury, especially when you're talking about an injury that he had, right, Kay? They have a lot of talent on that football team. Terry Fontenot has done a very nice job, along with Raheem Morris, putting the final touches on that roster. And I think they can utilize it. I mean, their run game, I think they have one of the very best running backs in the game in Bijan Robinson. Algier runs his butt off as well. I love seeing that. They can move the ball around more. I think that's where they're lacking a little bit. And you could see in the first 3 games, they were down. They were significantly low on the charts, right? I mean, they're where their numbers are in their stats, where we're down in the 20s and beyond in a lot of different categories. They pulled it up in this past game. I think Kirk is getting more and more comfortable moving around. I think they know that they have to get the ball to their explosive people, which is important. Everyone wants to see if Kyle Pitts get that ball, right, Kay? And I don't know where you stand on that. Great acquisition as far as just an unbelievable athlete.
Oh, yeah.
He's not being used there. Why is that? And that's something that they have to figure out.
Hopefully they'll work it out tonight against those Buccaneers. I'm looking at the odds here. Falcons favored by 1.5 points. I'm happy to have you here because there's a lot going on with Davante Adams, sort of all anyone's talking about, which is great for him because it shows you what a great talent he is. And then there's these injuries plaguing some contending teams, and there's teams reportedly making calls. Let's take a look, if we can control them, pop up the potential suitors that we are hearing about, rumored about. You've got the Jets, the Cowboys, Steelers, Packers, Commanders, Chiefs, Saints, Bills. There's a world where he stays in Vegas with these Raiders. Which team, in your opinion, let's start here, which is the best fit?
Well, I mean, obviously everyone wants to think that the Jets would be the best fit given, sort of a reuniting of a whole bunch of really talented people along with the quarterback. I think he's mentioned that he really wants to be around potential quarterbacks that he's been with before. Does that mean the Saints as well? Saints situation monetarily might be a little bit more challenging. The Bills as well would be challenging because, they're pretty maxed out. When I start looking at it, I think, wow, I would love to see him at Pittsburgh, to be honest with you.
Wow.
That's my thought. I'm not saying that would ever happen. When I start looking at that and I start thinking about making sure that they have their game continues to develop on the offensive side with the quarterback, that know that they're continuing to develop at Pittsburgh, I think that's really important. I keep coming back to, well, why isn't this hometown team looking at them? I mean, do the Falcons truly have a number two? And, is this something that they would consider doing? Not sure that they would. If they keep bolstering this offense, of course, in Atlanta, I think they can be really, really special down the road, not only with Kirk Cousins, but in the future with Michael Penix. That said, all of that said, I would love to see him reunite with Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you.
I was going to say, you said all that to say, you got me excited about the Atlanta because Terry has that in him. I think Terry does have that. Yes. Bravado that it would take to pull a haul like this. I have a couple questions here. When I asked you that question, he said he wants to reunite with it's true. He likes the quarterbacks. He's got the Derek Carr thing. He's got the Aaron Rodgers thing. I think the first question from fans is, who cares what he thinks? Like, if he wants to, why does he have a say in where he gets traded? You tell me, as a GM, as an executive of the year, you know this, a star, a bona fide, and he is that, 31 years old, 6-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro, looking for a ring, maybe disgruntled, maybe not disgruntled. I don't know what's happening, but how much say does Davante have? Why are we worried or trying to make the cute connections to Derek and stuff? How much is it really his choice?
It's not his choice, I don't think. I think in the end, it's not his choice. I think the teams are going to be discussing at a lot of different levels. It's the trade comparison, quite honestly, it's like the Stephon Diggs trade, Kay, where that's what was that? It was a second round pick, and then a couple other picks, a 5th and a 6th round over the next couple years. That may be the comparative. That's the comparative that we are producing in our own internal metrics here at Sumer Sports. It's one of the trades that we think aren't over the top. It's still, when you're trading a second rounder, that's complicated for teams that are looking to build, of course. I think the number is $13.5 million right now that would still be owed. I think that the Raiders, if they need to do this and it's something they want to do, I think they're going to have to be creative and give back some of that money to the teams that are potentially thinking about acquiring Davante.
Well, that's my first question. So he doesn't really have a say. I like the comp to Stephon Diggs. That seems to work out well. And then there's also this notion out there, that their teams don't have money. So out of the ones that I showed, it's which team can you rule out automatically? Or there's this theory where if it's a guy like Davante Adams, you're finding a way to, I always joke, move the decimal points, hide some money under the mattress, make it happen. Which one is true, sort of, with the cap hit? I mean, it's some of these teams on this list are cap strapped. His cap number is over $25 million this year. How big of a hurdle is that? Or is that BS and teams absolutely, all of them could find a way to make this work?
Well, I think people can get creative, and Kay, you're very aware of restructuring. That was always the big tool for us when I was in the league. It continues to be, right? And restructuring, it sometimes comes across to the public and the fan base that, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? This is crazy. And it's cap accounting, and it's something that you can be creative with. Some you can't, of course. Some teams you can't be. But I think that's what they're going to have to do. And I think being creative in a financial situation, back to what I was just saying, I don't know, would the Raiders decide on, paying half of that 13.5 that they still owe? Is that the number that teams would be looking for? Is it truly 50%? Maybe.
And that's what you're doing over there at Sumer Sports. What is that? What is Sumer Sports sort of telling you about the value of Davante Adams?
Still very high. I mean, both we at Sumer Sports, I've talked to you before about this combination of subjective and objective, right? We have over 500 years of scouting experience in this company right now with 5 former general managers and a number of scouts and personnel directors. We take the subjective scouting that is still very, very positive and high on him, even though he's going to be, 32 in December. I mean, he's still going to want a big contract coming out of this. It's going to be a creative move, whoever does bring him on. But back to the subjective and objective, the objective side of it is saying he's still truly productive and worthy of a legitimate contract. It's just a matter of where teams would go and how far they would pay.
That makes sense. And you also have to look at things. I mean, he's just a durable player. I know he's dealing with a hamstring right now. He was on our show on Tuesday talking about how it's not as aggressive as it was back in 22 when he missed a couple of games. This is a player who does not miss games, and he's always out there. And I think you have to consider all the things as you value them at Sumer Sports and as these GMs are doing, making these calls and trying to figure it out. I want to ask you about the Eagles, okay? Because I look at the Eagles, and I'm just, when I heard you were coming on, I was thinking, like, where's an interesting GM thing? And I hadn't thought about Howie in a long time. And when it comes to acquiring talent, he does it really, really well. He brings in Saquon Barkley. It's splashy. It's, plucking from a division rival. We're all seeing the Mara things. Like, that's a win for Howie, it's not just a bad thing for the Giants. It's like, we got him from you, and he's created this roster on paper, and then they're out here losing games, big games, little games, 8 of their last 11 losses. What, if you're Howie, like, what are you thinking? What is your level of involvement? Is there anything you can do, or is it just, I put this together and now please do something with it?
Well, I think you start by saying, first of all, I mean, Howie is one of the premier general managers in sport, right? The way that he acquires talent, brings the right people around him to help make a lot of good decisions, right? He's got some great football people around him. Dave Caldwell's there, former general manager of the Jaguars. Matt Russell, one of the best personnel men in the league. He's got a great group around him. So he's going to seek counsel from those people. That's what we would do in those situations, and I'm sure he's doing. He does listen to his people. He also has a very firm understanding of what his coaching staff is doing as well, right? So he's got to think about next moves, and that's something that's on his mind. I start looking at this, Kay, interestingly enough, it's 2 years ago now that they lost the Super Bowl, right? I believe 2 years. I went through that with Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
That hangover thing is I hate to talk about it, but it is something legit. You deal with it. And as a team, sometimes you deal with it well. Other times you're flailing around a little bit, maybe not as publicly as you think, but internally there's a lot going on there, right? A lot of discussions. How are we going to resurrect? How are we going to get out of this sort of situation where we're losing? And what does that mean? It doesn't mean acquisitions. I mean, they have a damn good team.
Yes.
They have a really good football team. Why are they coming up short? I mean, look, I still think they obviously won an important game, and they'll continue to win important games. I think Howie has to step back and look at how this organization is moving going forward. All those rumors last year with Coach Sirianni, that's a big deal that's been hanging over that organization's head over the last little while. And does it continue to fuel the fire? You're probably going to bring up Bill Belichick and where he ends up, but where does Bill end up? And is there ever a knock on the door in that situation? Not to throw those rumors around, of course, but.
What do you mean? That's a great rumor. What do you like? We were hearing that last year. Bill's not. The hangover thing is interesting because I think people moved on from the hangover long ago. Maybe we aren't accounting for what that is. But then you look at I don't know. I think I have forgotten how soon they were in the Super Bowl. But the empathy leaves fans and media and everyone, and instead is the expectation. But the truth is, like, they have a great freaking roster and a great team and a lot of talent, and organizationally, I can't think of a team better run culturally top to bottom. So where does it stop where there's issues? And I guess to me, it's with Howie, is it just does he have his feet on his desk and he's twiddling his thumbs? Or like what, where I land with it is, what can he do as the GM right now? What can he do?
Again, I don't think he doesn't have his feet up on his table. That's not how, he's either moving around or he's running the Rocky steps. I say that jokingly. He's got something going on all the time. And I think what he would be doing now is really honing in on what's going on. And remember, GMs aren't scheme people. We try to be mindful that we don't butt into the coach's world too much. But it is imperative that he understands what's happening on the offense and the defensive side. They were giving up some chunks of yards on the defensive side. That needs to be, It feels like it's coming into play now a little bit more, but that's something on his mind. I really just believe that he needs to continue to have his great deep conversations with the head coach and the coordinators without telling them what to do, more understanding what is going on so that he can continue to make decisions in the future. And some of those are decisions with personnel when time comes, when you start thinking about moving on from players or acquiring players. You need to know as a general manager what's going on with your scheme at an understandable level, right? It doesn't have to be an intricate level, okay, but it has to be enough to know what direction this team is going, not only this year, but in the year to come, because that is his responsibility to make sure he's on top of that. And he's got an owner there, quite honestly, that gives Howie a ton of power and leeway to make decisions. I love it. I think it's great for the organization.
I'm trying to see who the Eagles have this week. I knew this a minute ago, and now I forgot. I think they've got actually, I don't know. Bye week, and then they got the Browns on their side. That's why I didn't know they're not on the slate for this week, which kicks off tonight between the Bucs and the Falcons in Atlanta. You mentioned Belichick. You started your career with him. You worked with him in New England 10 years of experience together. What's the lesson of kind of what happened with Belichick as far as where we are right now heading into week 5? What's the lesson?
You're talking about the lesson, him
not coaching, him maybe is it a good thing to, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of perspective by taking yourself out of this thing that's so insane for a minute, and I'm sure there's benefit to that, like there isn't anything with perspective. But what's the lesson in the Bill thing? Is he now... is he networking more when he didn't have to before? Like it's a business after all.
I think Bill Belichick is handling this very, very well. He's interacting. He's away from the business a little bit. To your point, it is nonstop. To speak for people like Bill, I mean, such passion for this game. When I heard people saying, "Oh no, Coach Belichick's going to be finished and he's not coming back," I'm thinking, this guy is football through and through. He is. I think I've told you this story before. We were in GM advisory committee meetings during those last 2 or 3 years when I was still in the league. And he would walk into those meetings. He wasn't even, he's a GM, de facto GM there, right? But he's the head coach. He would be in the head coaching meetings, and then he would roll in to the GM meetings with such authority, not arrogance, but authority. He would sit down and everyone would get really, quiet because of who Bill Belichick was. The respect for him at that level to be able to come in and listen to GMs. And sometimes there's pushback. The reason I lead in there is there is so much respect for this man in the league as far as a coach. The teams that bypassed on him last year for reasons that don't even need to be talked about, i.e. that, he's a strong person and he does deserve the full say in an organization. He really does. He needs to be, in my mind, I think it would be great for him to be with a general manager that would understand that is his makeup, because there's no one else that deserves that. There's no one else that deserves that. You know what I'm saying? I think Bill Belichick, I said this before, Kay, I don't think there's a head coach out there that could possibly get you to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years quicker and more effectively than a coach like Bill Belichick. That's what I believe.
Would you ever work with him again?
I always would definitely welcome working with Bill Belichick, because again, what he brings to the table is you're always learning. If you're a person out there that wants to learn more and more, it's unbelievable where his knowledge. And he's got, contrary to what people are saying out there, where he's being surrounded by some of his cronies or whatever, some of those people that he has next to him are fantastic football people as well. My point on this whole thing is, I think Bill needs to be back in that seat next year, and it's going to be really interesting to see where he lands.